add value to your business, or do you want to just be this administrative person?
And often, if you look at your talent team and the caliber of talent in your company, they correlate.
You could hire the best person for the job if they were in your candidate pool.
All these individual employees, one by one, together, their voices all come together to articulate the culture of the company.
This is
hiring on all cylinders.
Hello again, my sweet, wonderful recruiting pals, and welcome back to HOAC, your favorite recruiting podcast, which is so essential it now has its own acronym. Who knew? And we are back to bring you the next chapter on our weekly and never-ending mission to bring all of you 1 millimeter closer to the recruiting gods. I am chuffed to my giblets again to be in here recording, joined by my fellow Antelopes, Senior Business Recruiter Amina Value Add Moinadine. Amina, how are you?
I'm great, Rob. How are you?
Wonderful. And also joining me is our very own Loni Spratt, Head of Customer Success. Loni, welcome back.
Hi, Rob.
You were gallivanting across Europe. You were in France and Italy, so we missed you sorely. I'm sure you got back and you realized you didn't miss us that much.
No, I got back and I was like, wow, I haven't done a podcast in a while. I need to do the podcast.
I love that was your first thought. Here we are. So you actually had, in your absence, right, had someone start? Or did you get back by the time she started?
I came back the day she started.
Oh, perfect. Okay. What was that?
Perfect timing.
What was
on
that?
Purpose.
Right. Oh, yeah, of course. What was that role?
Our very first team manager.
Nice. Okay. So how involved? Well, obviously you were very involved in that process. What was it like?
Well, Amina knows she helped me tremendously with this role, but probably the most critical role I've filled probably in a while, and probably the biggest role we're going to hire, like even this year. Not that all the other roles I feel are not.
Roles are
critical.
like your children. You loves them all.
I love them all equally. But no, this was a tough one.
If you had to play favorites.
No, this was definitely a tough role. Our bar was super high. And we were looking for something really specific. And so I was, at one point, we've been hiring for this role for a little while. At one point I was like, does this person exist out there?
Is anyone out there?
But no, we got someone great. She just started on Monday. So far things are great. She's ramping up pretty quickly. She has some industry experience, which is also lovely.
What was also really exciting about this hire was she actually came to us through Glassdoor, Best Places to Work.
Best place to work.
So that was, I thought, because we had been sourcing for this role. We had referrals. We had inbound. We had all sorts of types of candidates. And none of them were the right fit until she came to our door knocking. And here she is.
Yeah, and she actually, because we actually didn't have the role posted at the time, we were doing a revamp on the role, and so she reached out to us based on that Glassdoor to just network and really just want to learn more about Intello, learn more just about customer success, pick my brain on a few things. And then it kind of turned into this opportunity that we had here that ended up being perfect for her. So it was so great to have that kind of direct outreach, not even for a particular role, but just from the Glassdoor.
And you could tell by having conversations with her that she was already so bought in, which was really exciting and also helped a lot in our case as well.
Yep.
So she reached out under the guise of networking and then just happened to be a perfect fit for a role we hadn't determined yet. Seems a little too perfect. Like I'm not knocking it, right? Like I think as a candidate, that's probably how you should go about one great tactic to go about getting a job. Do you think she reached out to network with you with an ulterior motive?
Well, the beauty of it is, if in fact there is a role that's not, because we didn't have this role posted. So it would be different if we had the role posted and she's like, I just want to network, knowing that there's this actual role. We actually at that point didn't have the role posted. And she reached out to me, and when we first started meeting, she said, in all honesty, I want your role, but obviously you have that role on you. You seem to be doing a lovely job. So, I just want to network with you because I want to be in a role like yours one day. And we just started having that conversation. And then I just started asking her, what exactly are you looking for? And she started to talk through it. And I said, well, actually, we do have a role that we're about to repost, and we continue the description. And we started to talk through that. But she was very prepared. Mm-hmm. She knew that Entella was on the top of her list of a company that she wanted to work at. She knew that, but she just, when she looked at our careers page, she just didn't see a role that, that really fit her, because we had all pretty much individual contributor roles. Sure. And she really wanted like a leadership position, and we didn't have one posted. So little did she know we did have a leadership role. We were just revamping, the job descriptions before we repost it. So it actually ended up working out great. But you're right. That's a great strategy as a candidate to just do some networking, because you never know, even if they don't have a role right now, I may have had a role in Q2.
Right. Or you might know someone.
Or I might know someone. So it's still, even though it might be a guy's, sometimes it's not. Sometimes they truly just want to network, and then you might refer them, because she also had on her list some of our partners and some of the companies that she saw that I was actually connected to leaders at those companies. Right. So it was going to be a win-win for her potentially anyway, even if there wasn't anything here for her at Intello. Like, I could have helped her potentially with those other opportunities, because she studied my LinkedIn and she kind of knows who I'm connected with and things like that.
The old networking swoop-a-loop.
She definitely was like a dream candidate, and that whole process was perfect. I felt like end to end. I don't think it happens very often. She's our unicorn experience in candidate, and she was very deliberate in her search as well. She had turned down a few other offers. She knew what she wanted. She knew where she wanted to be, what type of company, what type of culture. So it worked out, and all the stars aligned.
That is just a dream, right? Just like that inbound candidate that's actually perfect. And I guess recruiters at large companies with sexy brands that everyone knows probably have that problem too. Like people are beating down their doors to work there, and it's a different problem of like sorting through it and making sure you get only the awesome people in. But yeah, that had to feel good, just knowing that like despite all the other sourcing and emailing you did, that she came to you, right? It's a blessing.
Absolutely. It was very exciting.
Big win.
Excited to have her. Very, very big win.
Awesome. Yeah, that Glassdoor best places to work. Didn't our Glassdoor page went from like a couple hundred views a week to like a 250,000?
2,000 to 17,000.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Not quite
a quarter of a million, but it went up pretty high, which was exciting.
I'm a marketer. This podcast gets 250,000 downloads.
Of course it does. 250,000. I was thinking 1 million.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there one day.
Yeah, we'll get there. We're well on our way. But speaking of being well on their way out the door, as it were, Amina, I sit behind you and I eavesdrop on all your calls. As our podcast audience is well aware, I bring it up somewhat regularly, but you were letting people down easy this week, giving them the whole sorry, but we have elected not to move forward call. And you did it with grace and aplomb, I may say. It's not an easy call. You both were mentioning it's like a terrible call to make. Like, no one wants to hear that, but you got to do it. So have we talked about this on the show before? I feel like we maybe have.
I feel like we have.
Okay.
This seems familiar.
It does. What should we add to it? Are you better at letting candidates down now than you were 6 months ago when we last talked about this?
I will say I do feel more comfortable. I mean, it's never a comfortable conversation. It's just never easy. Especially, so I've been doing a lot of sales conversations lately and we've talked about this last week, but I'm focusing on our head of enterprise and focusing on enterprise reps. And some of these candidates have spoken with our VP of sales, and he is, as you guys both know, he's super charming. He gets people really excited. People want to work for him. I worked for him for 6 months before Brit started, and he's great. So candidates meet him or they talk to him on the phone, and they are just super pumped. We've never had an issue, actually, where after meeting with Sam, people drop out of the process unless it was because of timeline. People are excited. They want to talk to him. So it's always a bummer having to call people after they've spoken with him and saying, hey, we've decided not to move forward.
Right.
I think I feel more comfortable now. I think it's just, Loni, you and I were talking about this earlier. You just have to be honest, and you have to give them as much feedback to whatever degree feels right. And I think people really appreciate that, because I want people to be successful, if it's not at Intello, wherever else they go. So I want to make sure that they can take something away from our experience. So if it's not moving forward with us, then it is something that they can take back into their interviewing process, how they're interviewing, what they're saying moving forward.
And I've always done that just as a best practice. But it's, the response that I get from candidates, they're so appreciative when you give them that.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, do you not get this from other companies? No. And it's no. I was shocked to hear.
It's rare. It's rare to get feedback.
Yeah, that's so, because this is something that I've done forever, and so I just think of it as like a normal thing that everybody's doing. Yep. But when in actuality, like candidates don't get this. It's just like, thanks, no thanks, and it's us, not you, so long, and that's all they get. And I just think that that's just a disservice to candidates and doesn't leave them with that great experience at the end. So having that, tangible feedback that they could take away, like Amina was saying, I think is helps kind of close and what's the word?
Close the loop
with the candidate. And I think it makes the call go much better.
Right.
Yeah. And to what you said exactly, I feel like candidates get really surprised. I've also gotten a lot of comments about, wow, we really appreciate you giving us a call, because usually we get some templated rejection email.
Yeah.
And the way that I will say, I do email candidates maybe after I've spoken with them, but any candidate that has ever met with a hiring manager, whether it's on the phone or whether in person, will always get a call from me. And even in the emails that I send to candidates, I try my best to give some sort of tidbit and why we're not moving forward, not just that, hey, thanks for having a call with us, sorry, bye. But when I do give candidates calls, they're like, we really appreciate you calling us and actually making this a personal approach. And that goes a long way. So to recruiters out there, take that 30 seconds, give them a call and let them know that you're not moving forward, and try to provide some feedback as to why.
Yeah, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable the first few times you do it, but
every time
you do it, it gets a little bit easier, I suppose. But yeah, and again, it's candidate experience. Like, are you committed to everyone that comes in through your company, whether you hire them or not, having a great experience and leaving it thinking, okay, I had a good experience, it was warm, I still like these guys, I'm not going to, I'd keep the door open in the future, or I would recommend someone else in my context go through the same process too. And if the answer to that is yes, then you owe these people a call. Because I've gotten that too. I've gotten the email that's like, at this time, we are not moving forward with your application. Best of luck. And it's like, all right, well, yeah, screw you too, right? Like, I spent time. I told my employer I had a doctor's appointment or like whatever. I came into your office and like dedicated some certain amount of time. Like, the least you can do is have like the humanity to call me and tell me. And then the feedback thing is interesting too. I know a lot of people don't do it. Like, you could, even if you could do the call, right, and say, we're not moving forward, thank you so much, like, end of conversation, right? But then there's also this question of like, should you tell them why we're not moving forward? Does it come down to, look, we honestly didn't think you had the right experience, or we're moving forward with another candidate? That's probably a little easier. And there's definitely different schools of thought on that. I'm curious where the two of you align.
So 2 things. Rob, when have you been interviewing and having to say you're going to a doctor's appointment?
This is forever ago. I haven't been to the doctor in years. It's actually a problem.
Stop your calendar now.
Wait,
when are
Rob?
you going to the doctor?
Rob, doctor and a dentist in 1 week? That's suspicious.
I've had conversations with many people, many recruiters who have very different opinions about giving feedback. Some people think it could be an HR liability. Some people think, I think use your best judgment.
Yep.
We're all adults, right? We know why we're not moving forward, and you know what to say and what you shouldn't say. And if you don't know, then talk to your manager and try to role play and figure out what's the best way. What I've also been doing, and I'm trying to be better at this, is actually telling the candidate right when I'm on the call with them. And so I've been talking to a lot of people lately who are just not enterprise. They probably would be mid-market.
Right before this podcast, I overheard you having that conversation.
Yeah, and I think that before I might have been like, okay, I'm going to ponder about this, maybe send them an email later, maybe let them know later on. But I know what we're looking for. I'm very comfortable with what our profile is, and I already know I'm not going to waste their time. I'm not going to waste, them getting an email and then going through that entire process. If I'm on a call with them right now, I'm just going to say, hey, I really enjoy this conversation with you. It might not be a good fit because this is what we're looking for. We're not hiring for this. What I'm also trying to do is actually, I have a couple of really good friends who are recruiters at different companies who might be hiring for mid-market account executives, who might be hiring for other roles that we're not looking for. And if I think this candidate is awesome, I've already texted one of my recruiter friends today and said, hey, are you looking for a mid-market account executive? I have a great candidate. But I just don't want to waste people's time. I know that how valuable everybody's time is, and it's just easier to let them know ahead of time and be transparent with what we're looking for.
Is it common to have a phone screen with someone and then like halfway through to realize I was wrong about this person's qualifications, or this person is
all the time, probably 85% of the time, honestly. Well, not 85%. That's way too high of a number. But when you're figuring out, when you have roles that could be, for example, for us, for enterprise and in market, and there could be people who you look at their profile and they have the right titles, and then you have a conversation with them and you're like, you know what, the complexity of their deals, the deal sizes, the revenue, it's not there. So they're right at that cusp. That's been happening to me a lot lately.
Yeah.
And it happens to me midway, and I'm like, oh, okay, should I continue the conversation and waste their time, or should I just let them know right now? And I will say previously, before, I would have continued the conversation and not let them know right then and there. But I'm trying to be a lot better about letting them know right away.
Yeah, and I do that too because it's similar for my roles, because I'm looking for people that have managed a certain book of business or certain contract sizes and different things like that. And sometimes it's not clear on their resume. Like they may say, I managed, mid-market accounts from a customer success perspective, but mid-market at their company might be like an SMB here. It might be enterprise here. Like it's so different. So unless they actually draw that out in their resumes, a lot of times you don't uncover that until you're actually on the phone with them.
Exactly.
And I totally agree with the methodology of giving that to them right away, because then you can leave it up to them. You can say, look, I'm really enjoying this conversation, but to be respectful of your time, just to let you know, we're actually looking for this. I'm more than happy to continue this conversation. But if you think that, it's not a good fit, we can end the call here. Sometimes candidates are like, awesome. Like, thank you. Like, I don't want to spend the next 25 minutes talking to you if this is not going to go anywhere. Others are like, no, I'd love to just learn a little bit more, because maybe down the line you guys might have a role. I would love to just take another 10 minutes to just hear a couple more things. I had a couple questions about Intello, and then I'm always like, okay to have 10 more minutes of a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But sometimes letting them know right away, they actually really appreciate it, because they have other things that they could be doing too.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot here. I always thought the phone screen was like, let's make sure you're not a total weirdo creep. Let's make sure that I feel comfortable bringing you on, that you are who you say you are. But it turns out there's like a lot more qualification going on at that stage, which is probably not news to most recruiters. But to me, I'm not but a humble marketer, this is great content. I'm learning so much.
I mean, my goal is, whenever I kick off a role, like Loni, you and I kicked off a roles before as well, is I want to know what the hiring manager is looking for before they have a conversation with a candidate. So Loni and I have gone through an exercise. Okay, Amina, I want you to ask all of these questions, and if they have the right answers, the right qualifications, the right background for what we're looking for and for these answers, then that's when I want to have a call. So it's similar. I've gone through that similar exercise with Sam, where if they don't have these basic qualifications other than, being in the roles that they've been in, then it's not worth putting it on their calendar.
Totally. I may have told this story before on the podcast, but I have a friend who's an aeronautical engineer, and he got reached out to by a recruiter, and he was speaking with her on the phone, and halfway through the conversation, she says, you know what? I honestly don't think you're a great fit for this role. And she's like, I have these other roles that maybe you would be, but I don't know. I want to be sensitive to your time. And he was blown away. He was like, really? You didn't just like drag me through this process and hope it worked out, or hope that I took a job that I wasn't actually a good fit for because like I was in your process already. And like he had never had that experience before. And so on the one hand, like at first blush, I was thinking, you called me, right? Like if we're in this conversation and you're deciding I'm not a good fit, like you kind of screwed up. Like why would you involve me if I wasn't gonna be a good fit? But then on the other hand, it's like, okay, you actually get to know someone, and then you kind of do them a favor by saying, all right, let's not drag this whole thing on. Let's just be upfront about where you stand in this process.
Well, it's similar to what Loni said though, right? Because you don't really know until you have a conversation with a person.
Yep.
Because what you said, what a role might be here could be a totally different role at a different company, but have the same title. So the only way that you can really identify that is when you're having a call with that person, unless you're in a company in a similar space, selling a similar type of product with a similar type of process, or whatever role it might be. It's very hard to be able to tell until you actually have a conversation with somebody.
And then when as you're making that statement of, you know what, now that you just explained that to me, it's probably not going to be a good fit for this role. And you can say, initially when I read your resume, I was thinking, your background was this because you specifically said this. Now I know what that actually means.
Yep.
And it's not what we thought it was. So you're just basically telling the candidate, yes, I did reach out to you.
And
Here's why I reached out to you.
Okay, that's fair.
But now after hearing you talk, I actually thought it was a different thing.
Okay, yeah.
So
you set that expectation early on.
You set that
then,
expectation. It's not like, oh, I just reach out to you just because I reach out to you. Like you can say like, okay, your resume said this and this, which was really intriguing and typically is a good fit for us. But now that you've explained what you actually did, probably not a good fit because of this reason, and then they're usually appreciative.
Yeah. I like that. This is great. This episode is betraying my vast ignorance about phone screens, but shows you how little I've recruited in the last couple of years. But that's okay. You two are bringing the ruckus. That's all that's important. There's one more thing I want to do. Can we do any other like last thoughts on phone screens or the letdown call? Is there a word for that? Like the rejection call that we're not going to move forward?
I mean, I guess it's called
breakup.
rejection call.
Unfortunately,
that's what's it.
The breakup.
Yeah.
The breakup.
The breakup call.
It's not us, it's you. Yeah.
Yeah. The hardest ones are ones where you've gotten really attached to the candidate.
Like
Those
after
are
like
so
a final round
tough.
interview.
Yes. It hurts my heart.
How is that different if you have like a candidate crush and you're like, you're so perfect, you're gonna be the best candidate for someone's gonna be so lucky to have you.
You don't get the rose.
Yeah, you don't get the rose.
Yes.
Exactly.
Sorry.
You made it this far, but no rose for you.
Yeah.
I personally think, and Loni, I'm sure you've had to do this, I think those are probably the better conversations because
they know that you love them.
I've been working with them for weeks probably. We've had multiple conversations. They've met with multiple people. We've had a really good understanding. For here, what I really appreciate is that at least the hiring managers that I've worked with, if you get to a final round, the hiring manager is going to call you.
Yes.
And because was for their role, they've worked very closely with you. But then I follow up with them as well afterwards because I've been working with them closely. And, some candidates have been like, can you give me a little bit more? What happened? And others are just like, you know what, Amina, I really appreciate all the support that you gave me throughout this entire process. And thank you. I actually had that experience just today with somebody who made it to final round, and it was really, really tough. But I actually passed them along to somebody else at another company who's looking for a role, and I'm hoping that could work out. Because, like you said, they might not be the right candidate for us right now, but they could be great somewhere else. And if we really believe that, they clearly made it to final round, then we believed in them to some degree.
They're a great candidate, right?
They are a great candidate. It might just
close.
not right. Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense that it's a little easier to part ways when you've been on that candidate side the whole time.
Yeah.
It's not just like, wait, why did you waste my time with one call or one onsite? You were like really rooting for them and wanted them to do well, and then you can probably be a little more candid in that call too and be like, listen, like I really, really wanted this to work out. I'm really sorry this didn't happen. Like, and they can probably tell like the honesty in your voice at that point and know that, you're not just being cold and moving on and all that. So
yep.
All right, good to know. There's another thing I want to do, and I'm just going to kind of shamelessly steal and repurpose content. Stacy Zapar, friend of the show. I'm sure most of you out there in the recruitosphere know her well. She recently on LinkedIn and then on Facebook in the Secret Sourcing Facebook group. It's an invite-only group.
Can you add me?
We'll talk about it. I don't know. We'll see.
Rob has connections.
Yeah. I'm allowed to be in it on the condition that I don't just like flame it with marketing content. So I've been very strategic about what I contribute. Mostly I just lurk and read. But one of the things that was this week, yes, I can add you, of course.
Yeah, I was like, Rob, what the hell kind of response is that? What?
It's like a politician. Like,
Yeah,
you
like,
did not answer the question.
Yeah. Look, it's definitely something we'll look at. I think you'd be a great fit, but it's
I'm getting the rejection call right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ultimately, the group's going a different direction. We're looking at some other
Can
candidates.
I have some feedback, please? That was basic.
I don't think that's appropriate this time, but we'll see. You'd be a great fit for any other Facebook group. No, but so anyway, Stacy posted this question. What's your knock 'em dead interview question? The one you're proud of to get the most helpful info from. So I figured I would just shamelessly steal and read some of these, and we can talk about why they're good or bad. So here's one. Katrina Kibben, who is over at Recruiting Daily. She's awesome. Definitely check out all her stuff. She says she's stealing this from Lori Rudiman. Let's say you're hired. A year has passed. You're about to quit. How have we failed you as an organization? So I guess
That's an interesting question.
The idea here is like, what do you truly value?
Mm-hmm.
What would cause you to move on?
Yep.
What is like the actual most important thing about this opportunity to you, right?
Yeah.
So like, what would be an answer to that? Like, should we role play? Amina, you've been in Intello 1 year and now you're quitting. Why are you quitting?
Leadership. I didn't feel confident in leadership. I mean, when I was interviewing here, that was something that was really important to me, right? So I'm thinking back to me identifying what was really important to me. It was leadership. I wanted to be at a company with leaders who I felt were tenured, who understood how the market goes. I mean, we're in a recruiting software company in a startup in a pretty volatile time. Like, it's always up and down. Our customers are going on hiring freezes and things can be very difficult. So I wanted to really understand how are we going to deal with that. And I felt I had a lot of faith in I didn't meet with you, Loni, but I met with Sam, I met with Jill, and I met with John, and I really believed in what they were saying and how they would execute. So that would probably be one of the biggest things. And then career growth, probably. That was both of those were number one for me. I wanted to know that I was growing in my career, that I was going to have the opportunity to take on more, to have closer relationships with hiring managers, to work on more strategic senior level roles. And if I didn't get those, then I would probably consider making a move. But I am getting those.
Right.
So great.
And then so we hired you before we hired your boss,
yes.
right? Britt Ryan. So
Yeah.
so
You
that
get
would
to interview your boss.
right.
I
So
did
that
my
would have been
interview.
an opportunity in that interview to say, look, we don't have a head of talent yet, or we're looking for a new head of talent.
And they did.
So you will have an opportunity to hire your own boss and to have input on on the leadership. Leadership is important to you. You're going to get to decide who that leadership is. That question is just aimed at addressing concerns, I suppose, and learning someone's true motivations for wanting to stay somewhere, right?
Yep. And we've talked about this before, but that's something I always ask in my initial call. What is really important to you? What are you looking for? What are your drivers? What are your motivators? And then take that to guide hiring managers, interviewers in terms of our interview process as well.
Yeah. I definitely think that's important. The way this question is phrased, though, is like,
it's different.
And it's like, what's important to you in a job? Like, then I would list off, things that I probably think you'd want to hear. Like, I want to be challenged. I want to know that I'm contributing to business goals. I want to, have interesting assignments and all that. So this one, I think, forces a candidate to put themselves in the headspace of like, okay, well, like, why would I leave this company? And then the answer to that is like, what do you really value about a job? Here's one from Stacy herself. At the end of every interview, phone or on-site, I ask the candidate, is there anything additional you would like to share that hasn't come up during our conversation? It's kind of like a catch-all, right? A little bit of a cop-out, right? It's like, what do you wish I asked you? Which sort of salvages you from having to ask a question. But it's also, you have this story as a candidate and things that you think are your strengths, and you hope to be able to glance across them in your interview, right? To put your best foot forward. And if your interviewer doesn't happen to ask that question, you might not get that opportunity. So it's sort of saying, hey, like, what am I missing? Like, what else do you wish you could share, right?
Yeah.
I like that one.
I like that one too.
According to Jerry Crispin's Candidate Experience Awards survey, that was the number one complaint by people. They felt like they didn't get every opportunity to share and tell their full story. So that one comes candidate data informed. How about that?
Data-driven recruiting.
It's the wave of the future. Okay, let's do one more. what did you do to prepare for today's interview? That's a pretty standard one. That we had our old head of marketing used to ask that for every single, like that was the first word out of his mouth for every call. And that was just like, okay, if you didn't prepare for this, he was interviewing for junior like SDRs. And like, if you don't have a good answer to that, then like,
we're not going to do this.
Then this is the end of it, right?
Yeah.
Like you need to take this seriously and prove that you can be professional. Tell me about a time you failed. That's a good one. I think you brought that up, Amina, actually on the episode where we interviewed you before you worked here. Going way back.
Yeah. Yes. I think it's very relevant to sales, I think, because we want to know about the deals you lost.
Right.
And recruiting.
And recruiting. And
because
the candidates you lost.
Because rejection is so common. Yeah.
Exactly.
Tell me about the one that got away.
Yeah, I did talk about that one. Now I'm remembering which one it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really huge, right? It's easy to talk about your wins. It's more difficult to talk about your losses. And are you blaming somebody, or can you take ownership of why you lost that deal or that candidate?
Yeah, and our team manager presentation, we had them present on, walk us through, it was like a case study kind of presentation, and we say, you have a direct report that has not, hit their quarterly goals 2 quarters in a row. Walk us through your strategy on how you would deal with this situation. Because it's easy to be like, talk about the most successful, employee you've developed, and they could go on and on about that, but to have them walk you through a situation where their employee or their direct report wasn't performing for 2 quarters in a row, you learn a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree. And I would like to qualify this whole thing by saying canned interview questions I'm kind of on the fence about. I feel like it's very stale, very predictable. Some of them you're like hoping you find someone who's like can just think quickly on their feet, which is important for some roles, not for others. The whole like brain teaser thing, like we've seen proven, is not valuable. Is it more important to just have a conversation with someone and know, all right, I need to, like, maybe canned questions are great for an inexperienced interviewer, but if you have done many interviews and you know what's important about the role and you know what kind of person is going to be successful, can't you just sit down and talk to someone and not do the whole tell me about a time you failed, tell me about a time you blah blah blah, like, and still get out of them what you need?
Sometimes, but I also think that there is a place for canned questions, because especially on that initial phone screen, like there's certain things you just got to find out, and sometimes it seems
boxes
like a checklist.
Seems
like a checklist of questions, like let us just get through these things and then we can like get into the warm and fuzzy stuff.
Right.
So I think there is a place for certain kind of canned questions, like why did you leave your last job? Like that is so canned and something that everybody asks, but like you want to know that.
Totally.
And you have to know that. Like your hiring manager is going to be like, well, why did they leave their last company? Like you as the recruiter better have asked that, right? Or know about that. So I do think that there's like certain ones that you want to always ask, but then I love some of these more unique ones where you can just ask them the question like a different way to elicit a different kind of response, one that you wouldn't get. And the reason why some of these types of questions work is candidates are used to questions asked a certain kind of way, so they have their normal answer. It's like, tell me your strengths. Okay, they rattle them off.
You've rehearsed it, yeah.
But then if you ask a strengths question a completely different way, they actually give you a very different answer. Yeah. So it will be more organic and more genuine response versus, oh, this is a strengths question, let me just rattle off my 5 strengths.
Or they might get stuck. Right.
Yep. Exactly. So
what's a different way that you'd ask me a strengths question? Instead of, Rob, what are your top 3 best strengths? What would you ask me?
So one question that I've asked previously is, if I were going to sit down with your manager, what are some things that they would say that they felt that you truly accomplished, and how did you get them? How did you accomplish those? Or how did you accomplish that? And I think that's a way for you to talk about, okay, what have you done? What are your strengths? How did you do that? But not saying outright, hey, tell me what you did. Tell me why you did an awesome job. So that would be one way that I would think about it too.
Right. And then the things they'd accomplished, okay, you did well. You accomplished this. You did well on it. You did well on it because of the things you're strong.
You're peeling the onion, right? Then talk to me. Okay, how did you accomplish that? What skill set, what did you have that you think got you to where you were, where you accomplished that? That was really wordy. Take that out. I don't like that.
I'm keeping it.
No, I don't like it.
It's my favorite part. Well, this has been an absolute blast. You two are wonderful. Thank you so much for being here and joining me. And thank you, all of you out there in podcast land, for joining us on this merry ride through the breakup call, the rejection call, the phone screen, the canned interview questions versus conversational ones, and everything in between. From everyone here at Intello and Hiring on All Cylinders, I've been Rob Stevenson. You've been magnificent, wonderful, beautiful, darling recruiters. Have a spectacular week, and happy hunting.